How are you doing, Mr. Zat, today?
Good. Doing great.
I hope there's great weather where you are right
It's
now.
hot. It's hot. It's always hot in Bali. This is supposed to be the rainy season, but we haven't had much rain, so I'm just waiting for the rain to cool me down. But it's okay. I'm a tropical person. That's why I love Brazil too. I went to Brazil in 2008 for the Carnaval in Rio. Yeah, I loved it. I love Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, well, I'm born in Rio, born and lived in Rio, and Davidson was born in Espírito Santo, which is just next to Rio, but is living in Rio de Janeiro since forever. Yeah, the Carnival in Rio is it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but I'm going to São Paulo in this Carnival.
I know. Like everybody, all the karaoke in Rio de Janeiro, they went to São Paulo. I didn't know. I was a tourist. I didn't know. And then they tell me it's like the real Brazilians, the locals. They go to São Paulo. Okay,
we go somewhere else.
We go to other places. We have enough for our own Carnival. We go to other places.
Yeah, we have everyday Carnival in Rio de Janeiro, so we just prefer amazing. Not to be there.
Oh yeah, but it's amazing. It's an amazing party. It's an amazing party.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest.
So I went with my roommate, he's a white American guy, and when we came back, he said, "Man, coming back from Brazil, US is so boring." It's like there's no life in Brazil. Maybe you are, you sometimes they rob you, but there's life. You feel the humanity all around you. But in United States, it's like you just go to work, you come back, and that's it. It's so boring.
Oh yeah.
I bet that's true. Yeah, I'm living in Italy.
It's a very good resume.
Yeah. I'm living in Italy, and I mean, I don't even have my blinders down today, and it's about noontime, and it's it looks like 5 p.m. It's winter time, so it sucks here. And myself as well. We are tropical, so we enjoy that. I was actually this time we are planning a vacation for March. And me and my wife, and we're probably going to China in the end.
Oh,
and
right now is the best time to go, actually, because China just relaxed a whole bunch of travel rules for foreigners. Now you can go, I think there's 8 major cities in China. You can go without visa if you have. It's called transit visa. If you have a plane ticket that leaves China within a week, so you can go to visit that city for 1 week without visa. It's called like the 6 days transit visa. So you just have to show them a ticket that shows you're leaving at the end of the week. Then you can free to explore that city. But I mean, Brazil is part of BRICS. Does Brazilian have some kind of do they need visa to go to China? I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Neither do I. Actually, neither do I.
Yes, well, we have to look at that. So we have a Chinese friend. My wife has a Chinese friend here in Italy, and she knows some people on the consulate. So for me as an European, because I'm Luso-Brazilian, I'm Portuguese-Brazilian. For me as an European, I pay about $120 for the visa. But for her as a Brazilian, but it's a 5-year visa. Okay, so it's a long-term visa. For her, it's about $240. So it's about double as a Brazilian. I could do as a Brazilian, but it's half price, so let's go half price.
I just know as an American, I have to pay for a visa to visit Brazil because our stupid U.S. government decided to require, visa for Brazilians. So Brazilian judge said, well, you guys have to pay too. So I had to
reciprocity, right?
Yeah, but that was forever. The visa for Brazilians to go to United States always have. we always had. It's extremely complicated. Davidson was denied once.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Mhm.
And extremely complicated and expensive. And the United States did not have to do the same. They could just come in. So this time so from starting of this year, Brazil started to have the stance of reciprocity. All countries. There was even a talk because Japan wanted to do the same, want to have a visa for Brazilians, and Brazil said, okay, visa for Japanese. And then they went back on that. So it kept things as it were before.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
But we were in that. We still are because we are seeing how much is going to cost. But we were between China and actually going to Indonesia for a summer vacation.
Come to Bali. Summer is the best time. Come to Bali. I'll show you around.
There, it's summertime now.
So we are Indonesia is in the tropics, so it's not really summer or winter.
Right?
It's just dry season or wet season. The summer, like normal summer, is dry season in Indonesia. So dry season is the best time because there's not much rain. The wind is always blowing to keep the air cool. So like between July and September, that's the best time to visit.
That's pretty much like north of Brazil.
Yeah,
North of Brazil
exactly.
the same. It's very equatorial, so it's always hot. Over here in Brazil, it says the season time and even more season time.
Something like that, yes.
But you guys should look into, if there's any maybe there's some visa waiver program, because now especially China is rolling out a lot of visa waiver program with a lot of countries, like with Malaysia, Singapore. Now they because there's reciprocality, so Malaysian and Singapore can visit China without visa for like 30 days and vice versa and so forth. There might be something for Brazil, especially because Brazil is BRICS.
That's probably something developing, nothing done yet, but something developing in this way.
Yeah. So let's start some conversation about interesting subjects. After talking about super interesting subjects, that is weather and beach, maybe we can do some serious work as well every now and then. So as we were previously talking a little bit, yes, of course, let me formally introduce ourselves. My name is Marcelo Vilaça. This is David Sandatman. We started this channel. It's very nice to meet you. We started this channel to bring a little bit of information light for the Brazilians and Portuguese-speaking people around the world. It's an honor to have you here. I've been following your work, as I told you before, for about 2 years, give or take. And I'm always amazed when I hear you talking about the Chinese history. It's really an explosion of culture, emotions, and knowledge. That's people are going to see it. I'm not going to spoil it right now. So I think that we can start more or less talking about the timeline. Maybe we could start talking about briefly talk about how China was formed, briefly, because that's about 5,000 years of that.
Yeah. It will not fit.
This is like a test. Can you how fast can you cover 5,000 years of Chinese history? In like 10 minutes. Okay, let's go.
Take a deep breath.
So the land that today we call China, I mean, this has been populated by humanity for for a long time. We know ever since the first humans came out of Africa, they pretty much very quickly spread all over the world, and they made their way into what is present day China. And because during the first ice age, the last ice age, a lot of the places in China, there's a lot of warm pockets. So humanity wasn't wiped out. There was plenty of warm places, especially in southern China, where the humanity survived and thrived. And about and after the humanity lived in like what we now call Stone Age, around about 10,000 years ago, this is when people around the world started discovering agriculture. The first agriculture started in Middle East, in what's called the Fertile Crescent. But very soon after, about 10,000 years ago, agriculture was independently developed in China's Yellow River Valley and the Yangtze River Valley. And Yangtze River Valley is where they first cultivated rice. And in the Yellow River Valley, they cultivated millets. And with the arrival of agriculture, you start to form larger societies. You start to have urban environment, and then you have state formations. And so around 5,000, 4,000, between 5,000 and 4,000 years, different states start to emerge. Different cultural centers start to emerge in China, and after hundreds of years of interaction between these different centers of culture, a state, a recognizable state start to form. But now, when we talk about history, the pedantic definition of history is written records, right? So when the written records, we know the earliest writing in China that was discovered date to the Song Dynasty, which is about 3,600 years ago. I mean, there were civilizations before that, but there were like prehistorical civilizations. Sure. They built cities, but they left no. They built cities, monuments, but they didn't leave any written records. So usually we say the scholarly consensus is a written history starting with Song Dynasty 3,600 years ago in China, and ever since, different dynasties come and go, but the core of Chinese identity and Chinese culture remain. So the Chinese language, Chinese characters today, trace their lineage all the way back to the Oracle bone script. The Oracle bone script is the earliest Chinese writing that was discovered, that was carved on the turtle shells and the spatula of the cow, that the ancient priests will use for divination. They will put the questions to the gods, write them down on the turtle shells and on the blades of the cow, and then put it over the fire. And depending on the way the bone cracks, they interpret it, whether it's ill or good omen. But now we have unearthed a lot of these turtle shells, and we can see how the Chinese characters evolve from these earliest writing down to the present. And around I'm trying to move quickly, so
sure.
And then around
I was not even thinking about going back 10,000 years, but since we're there, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay, so
it can look like little information, but to us, it's a lot of things. It's very important.
Very
yeah. It's important to know this small stuff about China. The details about China, because we have nothing here, absolutely nothing. We know a lot of things about the prehistorical Europe, but nothing about the East, and it's so rich. So go ahead.
One thing that's different about China, there were 4 great river valley civilizations in the old world, right? There's also ancient civilization in the new world, in the Americas, right? But traditionally, their focus, because there's still so much we don't know about what happens in the Americas. Just recently, they discovered the Amazon wasn't always like Amazon. There's some ancient civilizations in the Amazon, and that had the civilizational collapse, and the jungle grew over, vegetation covered over the remain of the old ancient civilization. So we're still learning about the prehistorical civilization in America. But what we do know about the old world is the 4 great river valley civilizations. River Niles in Egypt, Mesopotamia between 2 rivers, between River Euphrates and Tigris. So that's in the present day Iraq, southeastern Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, etc. That area. And then there's the Indus River civilization. It's around the present day Pakistan, the Indus River Valley. And the other one, the Great River civilization, the Chinese River civilization along the Yangtze River and the Yellow River. Now, what's different about China is there's great continuity from the very ancient past, from like 4,000, 3,000 years ago, all the way down to the present. I already talked about the writing. The Chinese writing evolved from the earliest writing on the oracle bone script. And around the Song dynasty was replaced by a new dynasty, but then eventually, China still had different population centers, different culture centers, because the South China, North China have a very different climate. People had different culture, but as the imperial age progressed, all these different separate cultural centers were brought together into one system, especially when the first emperor unified all of China under the Qin dynasty around 220 BC. He issued, everybody now have to use the same script, the same measurement. So he unified the language, the written language. And so from today, the language from the Qin dynasty, 2,000 years from our present, is like the characters remain more or less the same. So today I can read ancient Chinese records from 2,000 years ago and make out what they're talking about, which is not the case, say, Europe. Europe, there was for a while there was Latin, sure, but nowadays how many people are literate in Latin, right? I mean, but most Chinese people who knows who learn how to read and write in school, they will be able to recognize those ancient inscriptions on the rocks, and they will say, oh, that's from 2,000 years ago, and this is what most people were saying back then. So this is one of the uniqueness about the Chinese civilization, is a great continuity from the ancient past. And China is all about history. Like a lot of the Chinese everyday idioms, they may derive from an idiom that originated, say, like 2,500 years ago, but it's still in everyday use, and like people will cite these examples, these idioms, refer to something that happened 2,500 years ago, but everybody know what they're talking about, and they use that in everyday mode of speech. So this is what kind of set apart China from like other parts of the world. And any questions, comments, go ahead.
No, sure. Here, there's one thing, when we have Nina, she always, at some point, she say, now I'm going to shut up and let you talk. And I'm saying, I'm listening here.
Oh, yeah. As I said, we are very green on this kind of subject. Like with Nina, when she was talking about Russia, when we talk with Lucas, when he was talking about the Orthodox Christianism, they are subjects we have very little information, very little. So you bring this stuff to us. It's very important and fascinating. We really we need to shut up and listen, because it's time to learn. And we expect people learn with us here in Brazil,
Yeah, and a lot of people kind of, they try to understand China from their own cultural context, which is itself is very, very different from the Chinese cultural context, because the Chinese civilization is quite unique, and you know, there's an idea that China is, rather than you know, like a nation state, it's really a civilizational state because it has this long continuous lineage of civilization. And if you think about it, you know, a lot of the Western the countries, they see themselves as a descendant of the Greco-Roman tradition, right? And they trace their lineage to Greece and Rome. So imagine if Roman Empire never collapsed. That's what China is.
That's what China is.
That's what China is, because like when Roman Empire collapsed, it never was put together again. But China, even though it has experienced dynastic cycles and collapse, but it always comes back together. And so, for example, the impact of China in East Asia is like that. The impact of the Roman culture and language in the West and in Europe. So China had a profound impact on its neighborhood. So, you know, we're talking about Korea, we're talking about Vietnam, we're talking about Japan. All these neighbor countries, they have borrowed extensively from ancient China. You know, today the Chinese character is still used in Japan. You know, the Japanese script is based on the Chinese writing, and 70% of the Korean vocabulary was originally loan words from Chinese, from ancient Chinese, from not very different from modern Chinese, and very similar in Vietnam. So until modern time, before World War II, like countries in like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, they still use Chinese writing. So like even though the language is very different, they would still be able to communicate with, say, like the engage in the intellectual fervent in China, just because we can read each other's script. We use the same script, that everything is written in classical Chinese, the format that hasn't changed for like last 2,000 years. But after the World War II, you know, because of nationalism, rise of nationalism, and also because colonialism, you know, in case of Vietnam, is because due to the French colonization, so the French introduced a Latin alphabet in Vietnam, so that's changed. And Korea, they had they invented their own alphabet they invented their own alphabet, able to read the Chinese, because even though Korea and Japan, they use the Chinese characters, but they pronounce it in their own native language, right? So sometimes to help them to read the Chinese characters, they invented their own alphabet to do that. So both Korea and Japan did that, and now they're mostly switching to their native alphabet rather than using. But Japan, the Chinese character is still used extensively in the Japanese language. Yeah. So China had an oversized impact on like the historical and cultural development of East Asia for a long time, and surrounding region as well. So and you know, people may have heard, you know, like all the major inventions that revolutionized the world. Paper making, compass, gunpowder, printing, they all originated in China.
That's super interesting, because in school, for example, we learned that one of the big revolutions on Western side was the discovery of powder.
Oh yeah.
And at some point you learned that China had even developed the muskets, or whatever it was called, the big large guns, and even missiles. Once upon a time, I saw a documentary with the you know, firework rockets that used to bring swords to
spears. Yeah,
spears and stuff like that. So
yeah, because you know, one reason is because for the longest time, China is where a huge chunk of the humanity lived. Like until pretty recently, even even today. In today, like 1 in every 5 person in the world is Chinese. But even as recent as like just before the Opium War, like in the 1840s, back then 1 in every 3 person in the world is Chinese. And so there's a lot of activities that happen in China that was transmitted to the rest of the world. That's why when Marco Polo went to China, he was amazed. It's like, wow, people burn coal and they had paper money. China also invented money printing and hyperinflation.
Hyperinflation
for that.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, like, but a lot of people just don't realize it because they're not educated about it, and because these inventions happened long time ago, and especially nowadays, we are more used to what happened, like in the last 200 years, and in the last 200 years is the dominance of the West over the globe. So people kind of tend to forget that, like, in the longer scheme of things, like the last 200 years was really like a glitch in terms of Chinese history, because for thousands of years, China was the dominant and civilization in East Asia, and it was one of the most advanced civilization. But it fell behind in the last 200 years, after the Opium War and et cetera, because England managed to have the first industrial revolution, and that because of that, China fell behind. And because we kind of grew up with the memories of our father, our grandfather, our great-grandfather, so we all know, like, China has been backward, has been poor. But what, from the Chinese perspective, because Chinese people have a long memory, but what they're seeing right now, they don't see it as rise of China. They're seeing the revival of China, the re-emergence of China. They see China kind of returning back to its historical place.
Like this 200 years have been just, we had bad moment.